I've got some new springs to replace the originals, one of which broke. It's got a snapped off end there, which is very rusty. It happened a long time ago, no doubt, and even though I'm only sort of setting the suspension up temporarily, and I thought perhaps I could use a cut off or broken off end of the spring in the shock absorber, because it hasn't got a nice flat end, because it's not wound properly, because it's been cut off. That was looking to be impossible. So, new springs. Bought some new springs, and here they are. Well, here's one of them. The other's already on the car. And what I need to do is to compress the spring so it can go on the shock absorber, because it's too long to allow me to fit the spring cap on, and so I need to compress the spring, and I'm going to use my method of ratchet tie down straps to do the compression, because I haven't got a spring compressor that's slim enough to go between the coils. So I'm going to use this method that I've developed using tie down straps. Now, one thing that you have to be very careful of with springs, they store a lot of energy, and if they were to let go suddenly, you have this weight. I don't know what the weight of the spring is, but it's probably a kilogram or so. And if that was to go flying across the room, propelled by its own tension, that would be extremely dangerous. So it's necessary to use some kind of spring compressor to remove the tension. As I mentioned, spring compressors that I've got access to anyway, apart from this method, tend to be rather too chunky to fit between the spring coils. So I use this method using tie down ratchet straps, which allows me to compress the spring using a fabric thing which is quite similar material to seatbelt webbing, and of course it's very, very thin and flat, so works quite well. Now, as I've mentioned, and I've put two in so far, as I've mentioned, the prospect of one of these things letting go doesn't kind of bear thinking about. So with the more powerful of these type of springs, I tend to use 3 ratchet straps, although probably 2 would actually be enough. And a bit of belt and braces there. So I've got 2 on, and here comes the 3rd. So if one was to fail, in the nightmare scenario where one of them broke, it could be a case that the first one breaks, which therefore increases the tension on the second one, causing that to break as well, and that's the scenario, sort of runaway scenario, which I want to avoid. Hence I'm using 3, so even if one breaks, the other 2 will still be there, and 2 will probably be enough. So that's my logic anyway. So anyway, I'm feeding the tape fabric through the spring. Notice I'm not going all the way to the end of the spring, and that's because it could get trapped, especially at this end, with the spring seat threads. So I'm doing it not all the way to the end now. Looks like I need to spread that around slightly, because it's not equally spaced. I'm going to lie it down now because, to be honest, it's exactly a scenario when you actually have the spring resting on something. If it was to let go suddenly, go firing across the room, it would have to be pressing against something in order for that to happen. So lying it on the bench, as I was just doing, standing it on the bench I should say, is probably not the best idea for safety reasons. So I'm trying to keep the both ends exposed. Right, that should do it, I think. So I'll drop that onto the shock absorber, pull the piston out to its full extent. There you go. Yes, it will. Just. Okay. Right, now the spring seat looks like it's firmly in place. Now I can let it go, and I think that is now fully relaxed. So I just need to pull it off. Two of them are slack. And we can then put the combined unit back on the car. Now you might wonder why I'm using new springs on these rather rusty old shock absorbers. That's because this may be a temporary setup, and I didn't really want to invest in a whole brand new set of coilover shocks at this point. In actual fact, I'd quite like to, if I could, find a way of using the original ones, 50-year-old Spax unit, but some reconditioning is needed. I'm just not sure at this point whether that's feasible. But anyway, so there's two reasons for wanting this kind of intermediate step. One, I might be able to recondition the originals, which would be nice, and two, I'm not exactly sure completely what setup I'm finally looking for, so it may end up being quite different. And finally, the coilover unthreaded. So there we are, one coilover shock to match the other one that I've already done, and that can now go back on the car. So here is my second coilover shock. The first one I did before the camera battery ran out is already hanging from the suspension. Unfortunately there's no suspension arms on this side at the moment, whereas there is on the other. So I shall transfer this new one into place on the other side right now, with the suspension arms already there. So I'll just change the focus. Right, let's see. I think I'll have the adjustable damper set screw inwards. Up. Put the bolt in. Put the nut on. That's it. I'll need a spanner to do that properly. And now I have to put the bottom bolt through, and I've had to replace those. I've had to replace the bottom spring bolt because I had to cut it off in order to get the old one out, and so I've got new ones which are nice and shiny, which is always good. I'm just going to put some copper grease onto this. So, this is a different kind of shot, isn't it? Involving the outside. So what I've done is I've painted the chassis. Look at it. It's not finished. The painting, I mean, it's not finished, and even some of the welding isn't quite finished. But I thought I'd protect at least what was available. So I've put the suspension back on. The axle here, the panhard rod here, springs, still using the original springs at the moment at the back. The front ones, as I mentioned, have been replaced due to one of them being broken. And yeah, it rolls. Look at this, look. It's got 4 wheels and it moves. Long time since it was in that condition. So that means that I can roll it in and out of the garage, basically, which is an advantage, and in turn that means I can fiddle with the engine, which I think is just out of shot, just over here.